Hey everybody, how you doing? Dr. Hellman here. Hope you're having a great day. It's snowing here in Colorado. We're supposed to get 3 to 6 inches of snow here in the Denver metro area. So it's kind of a down day for us today. This is Good Friday, the 18th of April. And what I want to do now is begin to go down a new road. So we went through a whole bunch of Linux cluster computing vids. And so now what we want to do is take and turn that into a DevOps environment. So I'm not going to go down the cluster road quite so much. What I want to do is begin talking about how DevOps might work for you. It's a very, very important term and something you need to know in the information technology industry. Everyone and their dog is using DevOps, so it's an important thing to be aware of. So what we're going to do is create a very large VM. We're going to use Docker to create our cluster nodes. In this case, we're going to use Nginx, which is a website program that is available for free. And then we will use Ansible to take that Docker container and populate it out to a couple more. And then ultimately, we might even go a little bit further with that. But in this video, what we hope to accomplish is a very large VM. We want to actually install Docker and create one container that's running Nginx, and then we will use Ansible to copy those over to other containers. So let's get started. It should be informative, useful, definitely something you need to know. DevOps is a big, big ticket, and it's something that you should plan on learning more. Let's get started. Right then, so you can see here that I have created a clone of the master node, and I call it Debian 12 for Linux environment master node clone. That's quite a long thing. That's okay. All I did was clone master node, and now what I'm going to do is edit this so that we can use it. I'm going to make it quite a bit larger. pfSense is running already. I'm not going to need the other compute nodes or anything like that, because we're going to do everything inside the master node. So I click the gear wheel, and we're going to go in and edit this. Now, I'm going to say that this is my DevOps clone, or DevOps master node, something like that. So let me edit this here, and I'll say for DevOps, and this is camel case, is how it's spelled. I'll get rid of the word environment, it's too large. And I will take out master node here. Okay, I check advanced, bidirectional, everything's good there. Now what we're going to do is jack up the memory quite a bit. You can see I've got a lot of memory in this machine on purpose because I wanted to create videos that involved both VMs, plus I'm using Camtasia, TechSmith Camtasia, to record these things. I love the product. It gives me a few headaches here and there, but I love the product, and it makes it really seamless and easy. I've tried using OBS before. It's okay. I like the features that TechSmith Camtasia brings to the table. Anyway, we need to give this thing 16 gig of RAM. So we'll just make this 16,000 is fine. I don't need to be worried about being that particular. But 16,000 megabytes of RAM is 16 gig of RAM. This looks good here. I'll check my processor. Everything looks good there, except that we're going to ratchet up the number of cores that we have. So we want at least 4+ cores. I'm going to give this guy 6 cores, just to be on the safe side. PAE, NX is enabled, nested VT is enabled. On the motherboard, we've got IO APIC enabled and hardware clock UTC time enabled. That's totally fine. Then we come down here and look. Everything else should be pretty okay. There's nothing really that I need to adjust here. I don't really need to adjust the video memory. It works fine. I don't need to enable 3D acceleration. I have played around with this graphics controller option before, and I've settled on VMS VGA. But whatever works for you. If you're having problems with video, this might be an area where you'd like to go and take a look and see what's happening. We've got the same thing here. We've got the VBox Guest Editions ISO right there, Debian 12 right there. Everything looks great. That's because this is a clone and all that stuff's already there. I have enabled audio. I really don't need to, but I have enabled it. And you remember that everything we're doing, because pfSense is acting as our router, then everything that we're doing is on an internal network, and this is called cluster server. I could actually rename this DevOps server at this point if I wanted to. Cluster server is just fine because I'm not going to run anything else apart from this, and there's nothing else inside any of the other adapter settings. You should remember that you can have a total of 8 adapters, 4 of which are on board already with the software. Another 4 can be added when you are programmatically doing work. I don't care about having any serial ports. USB is enabled for USB 2, that's fine, and we're good to go. So I click OK, and now I'm going to go ahead and run this application. So while cloning the VM is fine and adjusting its size, I had been doing a bunch of experimenting around and installing software and things like that. So I knew that that VM wasn't going to work for me. So what you're seeing here is a brand new VM that's been installed that has everything on it so far that we need. You can see that I've installed Visual Studio. I have OpenMPI running on here. I have OpenSSH running. I've got this in XFCE, which is great. It's real lightweight. I added one little menu here to the bottom, this little whiskers guy. If I go to click that, I can go find my development right there, so that's easy. And I guess I could add it to the desktop that way, so that's kind of cool as well. Anyway, so we've got that. Now what we have to do is that we have to start adding some other stuff. I have not added Docker yet, so that's the next thing that we're going to add. So our first command is simply to add Docker to the list here. And so I'm going to do a sudo apt update. I've already done that. I'm going to get rid of that because I've done update about 5 times now, so I don't really care about that. It's going to be current, and it's not going to really bring back anything to me. I will put a TAC-Y at the end of this install so that it doesn't prompt me for the space. By the way, I did dedicate 50 gig to this particular installation here so that I've got quite a bit of room, and there is a way that you can monitor the space in an XFCE environment. Pretty easy to do. You could actually add that to this little Whisper container here. It's in there. Anyway, I'm going to go ahead and run this, and I will type in my password and hit enter. Very good. Okay, we're all done there. Now, if you remember from a previous video, we have to install the GPG key. So I will right-click and paste that line in. This is what it looks like. We're going to download that key from Docker and install it into our key ring. So that's pretty straightforward, not much to do there. You remember as well that we have to add this thing to our key rings so that we know, so that Docker knows and is able to launch from our system. Our system knows about Docker. Docker knows about our system. That's the concept here. We did that on a previous movie. Now we do have to do a sudo apt update because we're going to refresh the list because we had some stuff added. So now we have to refresh this list, and I got into trouble on a movie. I didn't do this, and I couldn't find something to install. I got into trouble. I ran the sudo apt update, and sure enough, it took off. So that's really good. And now we want to verify that our Docker installation is actually working. So there is a way, there's a hello world program, and you recall that this, if it doesn't exist, it downloads it and runs it. It says it's unable to find it. Very good, that looks really good. And finally we add a user mod command to our list. So I'll clear the screen here, right click and paste, and we will add Docker to the list of users. Very good. Okay, so we've got Docker installed now. Okay, now we're going to install a pretty cool little product. It's called Ansible. And so the idea is you have these Docker containers that you've made. A container is, it contains all of the necessary applications, configuration settings, all the other stuff. They call them the dependencies. And so you could put a database in there, you could put a website in there, things like that. So what happens when you have like 1,000 containers? And there are orchestration tools that are out there, and Ansible allows you to manipulate a bunch of different Docker containers all within one setting. So we're going to use Ansible to do this work. Now there are 3 really famous products. One's called Ansible, there's another one called Puppet, and another one called Chef. And I'm sure that there are others, but those are the big 3 in terms of orchestration management tools. So we're going to install Ansible. So the first thing we do is we type in sudo apt update. This is really standard protocol with this stuff. I just want to show you what you're going to do. I'll put in a TAC-Y here. I don't think I need to do this because I did it just not too long ago. Now this is a very, very large VM, like I showed you before. So we're running 16 gig of RAM, and then I also have 4 cores tied to this, and I made this a 50 gig container. So we've got that going for us. Now, unlike some other installations, Ansible is pretty easy. So we're just going to do a sudo apt install Ansible, and we'll do a TAC-Y on that. All right, and then we can issue the Ansible command, clear the screen here. I'll type in Ansible TAC version. This is super common across all the apps. Very good. So we've got this going. Now I should show you this command in case you wanted the latest and greatest of Ansible. Let me show you the commands. I'm not going to do this because I don't think that we need this with regard to this particular exercise we're doing, but I do want to show you what it looks like. And we've seen this before when we've done other things in previous movies. So if I right click and paste this in, now the only thing you have to worry about here, let's go through this a little bit. So we've got a code name of Jammy here. That's not our particular code name here that we're currently on. You're going to go out and get a GPT key for this thing, put it in your key ring. This is stuff that could be useful for you. And so if you do a sudo apt update and then you install Ansible TAC-Y again, what it'll do is reinstall it using this key ring. However, the only thing I want you to be aware of is that you're not using codename Jammy with this Ansible version. But I think what we'll do is we'll just go down the road. I don't think I'll do anything with it right now. I don't know that we need this, so I'm just going to leave it out for now and clear the screen. Now there's a couple of other tools that we could use as we're working with this. There's one called htop. Let's see if we can get that to install. And it's, as you might think, it's just sudo apt install htop. Like so, that's what it looks like. And you can see that I've installed that. There's another one called bpytop. Let me clear the screen here so you can see it and make it a little bit easier to read. So it's bpy, like Python, bpytop. And I should have put a Y in there, and I didn't. And this is a pretty quick install too. So I want you to know about a product that you should be aware of. It is called Portainer, Portainer.io, Portainer. What Portainer is it's a web-based management solution to help you manage Docker containers. And so that might be something that you gravitate to as you're learning how to work with Docker and with various containers. So you should be aware of Portainer. Now, for purposes of this video, we want to illustrate something practical. So you should be aware of a web server product. It's called Nginx, or I'm not sure how you pronounce it, but it's Nginx. So we'll go look for that. Yeah, it's pronounced Nginx. Yeah, so I did sort of right or not. Let's go ahead and take a look at this thing. So I go look at Nginx, and it's an HTTP web server. It can act as a reverse proxy. It can do content caching. I remember years ago when Microsoft was getting into this, they had a cache server product. And so the idea would be that it would cache users' requests for different websites, and it would speed up the experience of the user as they were trying to connect to a website. So it does stuff like that. It's a load balancer. It can be TCP, UDP proxy server, mail proxy, and so forth. So we're going to mess around with Nginx, or Nginx, as they say it's pronounced here, Nginx. We're going to mess around with that and use that in our particular containers that we're building. Now it's time for us to build what is called an Ansible playbook. And so I'm going to clear the screen here. I'm going to make a folder strictly for that. So I'm going to make a directory called Ansible. I'm going to change into that directory. So we'll do all our work inside that directory. Now if we're going to make this playbook, we are going to use what's called YAML. YML, it's a .yml extension, and it stands for yet another markup language. It's very popular. It's a lot like JSON. I think actually it's a little bit easier to understand than JavaScript object notation. These are the two big players, and so, so if you're working in the cloud, you're going to wind up working with YAML or working with JSON. And so much of what we're doing in DevOps is to prepare for cloud deployments. So this is why it's such an important thing. So let's go ahead. We're going to nano this guy, and we're going to call it docker tech nginx.yaml, like so. And the first thing we've got to do is we've got a name. So I'm going to put a name here. I'm going to say that this is to deploy multiple Nginx containers. Should have pasted this in, I guess. We've got a line here called hosts, and we're going to do this all off of localhost. Localhost is an address realm that's used by your computer to do things locally. It's in the 127.0.0 environment. It's typically 127.0.0.1, although the entire range is reserved for this. We call it loopback or localhost. And so we're saying that everything we're going to do here is going to be done within localhost. This would not be the case if you were doing a production installation and you had hosts all over the place. You'd have to name those hosts, but in this case we don't need to. We're going to have our connection, and our connection is going to be local, and then we're going to have what are called tasks. So I'll indent a little bit. I'll come in 3 or 4, and we're going to do tac name. I need to put a tac name up here as well. Tac name. And our tac name is going to be run Nginx containers. Then we'll have another line here that says Docker container. And this guy's going to have a colon after it because we're going to put in some information here. So the first thing we're going to do is have our name. It's going to be double quotes, double quotes. We're going to give this the name of Nginx, left curly brace, left curly brace, right curly brace, right curly brace, and right in the middle of those two double curly braces, we're going to put in a thing called item. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to put in our image, and our image name is going to be Nginx. And then we'll have our state is going to be started. And we're going to have the ports that this thing is going to use. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. How about that? So we're going to indent that a little bit. We're going to put in a tac, double quotes, left curly, left curly. We're going to use port 8080, very, very common, plus item. Right curly, colon 80. Now what this is doing, this is super common in the web development world where we have, our websites typically answer on port 80 and then they're switched over to port 443. Port 80 is HTTP, port 443 is HTTPS. But what happens if we have an internal site that we want to host, like an intranet? A lot of times those are hosted on port 8080. That's what's happening here. We're mapping 8080, the Nginx plus the item, to port 80. That's all that's really doing. and then we're going to loop for 3 of these things. So we're going to create 3 Nginx containers. So I'm going to say loop, colon, left and right square brackets. Now this is an array, and we're typing in the Nginx containers that we're going to use. We're putting this all in a little bit of an array here, and then I will do a Control O and enter to save, and I'll let you take a look at the script real quick. Could be that I got fat fingers somewhere, it might not run. You might wind up having to troubleshoot the script just to see what's going on. But this is what YAML looks like. It's pretty easy to use and understand. I like YAML a lot. I like JSON a lot. JSON's a little bit tinier, more complicated to understand. And then these are all what I would consider to be little brothers and little sisters of the big guy, XML, extended markup language. So what we've got here is just a markup language that's instructing Ansible how to do its thing, and it's saying that we're going to create 3 Nginx containers. That's happening right here, and here's its name, and then we're going to start it, and we're going to redirect the port 8080 to port 80, and we're going to create 3 of those bad boys. So I'll do a Control X to get out of here. Now, as expected, of course, we get an error here. Let me highlight that and see if it's a little bit easier for you to read. And it's pretty interesting because it's saying we were unable to read either JSON or YAML. These are the errors we found. You scroll down through here, and it's looking at this Docker container line, and it's telling me where in the script that it found this problem. The problem is I missed an underscore. So let's see if we can hit our up arrow and go ahead and edit this thing again. And this should be Docker underscore container. Control X and enter, Control O and enter, and then Control X, clear the screen. All right, let's see if we can run this. Now the way that you run this thing is you type in Ansible TAC playbook, then a space, and then you give it the name of the YAML file that you want it to run. Let's see if it'll run for us. Nope, still got a little bit more troubleshooting to do. Well, as expected, this is an indentation problem, a spacing problem. Ansible likes to see things spaced out in a pretty uniform way. So what I'll do is I'll just do a Control A to grab all these guys here. Oops, I guess I can't. And then delete all that. I might have to come down to the bottom here and delete everything, because I have the actual one here. I'll paste it in so that you can see it, and I'll give you the rules that are required for the Ansible playbooks, because it is relatively specific in the way that it needs to do things. So let me paste that in here, give you a look at this thing, see how it looks. Paste. There you go. Now, you see this TAC here, right over here, and then name. So indentation is 2 spaces per level. And then I screwed up by having these lines. I had a line in between each of these. It's okay to put the line in here, evidently, the line where it says tasks. So I can do that. Right there, there's a blank line there. But then we come in 1, 2. Then you have 1, 2. So you start out with TAC 1, 2, and then all of your stuff goes in there. Now let's see, is it 2 there? 1, 2. 1, 2. Yeah, it's pretty serious about this. And then we started with name. So you notice that the TAC here is 2 spaces before the word name. And then when we have these major items like Docker container and loop, those do not get indented, but the information that's talking about how we create the Docker container is indented. And I also went ahead and put a space in here between these so it's a little bit easier to read. Now you cannot use tabs at all. The top level list beginning with name : starts at the left hand margin. All child keys like hosts, connections, tasks, Docker containers are properly indented. So let's see if this helps. Control O and enter to save. Control X to exit. Let's run this guy one more time. In fact, I'll clear the screen so it's a little bit easier to see. Well, look at that. Very cool. That looks pretty good. It says there's some failures here, so I'm going to have to go ahead and look through this and see what it's got, and then I'll come back and tell you what I found here. So the fix was pretty easy. You do a sudo Ansible playbook docker nginx YAML, and we're looking good. So we got items 1, 2, and 3. Wow, that was really cool. What it did was it automatically created each of these Docker containers right off of the chute, and they're all sitting out there. Now, how can we tell if they are actually working? Well, the beautiful part about this is it has to do with the fact that we are running each of these, and we're running Nginx, and we're running it in different containers, so we can just go out to localhost. Here's how you do that. So we're doing it through http://localhost. I want to talk about this command in just a minute. And we should see one sitting out at port 8081. Let's see if it answers. Yeah, very good. Okay. Let's go to http://localhost 8082. Beautiful. That's a great thing. And then http://localhost:8083. And the script did exactly as it was supposed to do. And it took maybe, I don't know, maybe a minute, minute and a half to create these containers. So that's good. Keep in mind, though, that if the containers had a lot of stuff going on, this is a pretty easy demonstration using Nginx. If there was a lot of stuff going on, it might take quite a little bit longer to do this. Now, what I wanted to say about this HTTP thing, we generally would not, in a production environment, want to use HTTP. That's bad, bad juju. And so what we would do is we would use HTTPS. Now, my assumption is, and I could be wrong, but my assumption would be that what we would do is we would, let me go look at this thing. We would change this to port 443. And we would be able to use it that way instead, I guess. I'm not sure exactly. I'll do some research on that and see how we would make that change. But now that's about all that I've got to give you on this. I did want to show you this because this is actually pretty good. So the concept here is what you're looking at is the difference between Kubernetes and Ansible. So when we have a container, it's called a Docker container, but if we were using Kubernetes, it would be called a pod. And then our service port inside our YAML file is called a port mapping, but in Kubernetes we would call it a service. There's a thing called the deployment replicas. Now what that means is that it went through here 3 times and created 3 different containers. And so this is just an Ansible loop that we use to do that in this particular YAML code. However, in Kubernetes it's called a replica set. And then in our case, the infrastructure host was a VirtualBox VM. But if we were using real Kubernetes, we would be using what is called a Kubernetes node. Okay, so I hope that was really helpful to you. There's a lot to know about DevOps. It's a very, very important topic. And I wish you well in your endeavors. I'll try to keep going down the road with you to help you understand a little bit more about this. But what I would recommend next would be to maybe go to Udemy and take a DevOps class. A lot of those classes are pretty inexpensive. And see if you could find a third-party book somewhere. I like No Starch Press. Maybe they have a book on Kubernetes. That sort of an idea. So the idea here now is that this thing can go really, really far. There are certifications. It's a blend of coding and servers and networking. There's a lot to know about it. And then if you wanted to use orchestration tools to push an app up to the cloud, you would have to know how a cloud provider works as well. So it can get pretty doggone complicated. Anyway, hope you enjoyed this video. My name is Dr. Heldman. I would love it if you would subscribe to these videos, tell your friends about it, ring that notification bell if you need to. I don't know if they even have that anymore. Please, you're welcome to drop a comment to me if you'd like. I'm happy to get comments from you guys. I really appreciate it. And thank you for listening, and I will talk to you in the next video. Thanks. Bye-bye.